You are now co-host. All
Okay,
right,
cool.
for anybody stopped in, we're recording this presentation with Mary Kate Kwasnik, and she's with NEDCC. And I'm just going to stop there, and it's all yours, Mary Kate.
Okay, thank you. All right, let me go into, yep, there we go. I'm gonna make sure I'm sharing the right screen. Okay, how does that look? Can you see my presentation?
I
Awesome.
I see it's good.
Okay, perfect. So this is really more like 10 minutes, but I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have. And it's super informal. It's just about what we do at NEDCC. And the reason I'm here is because I'm local to Maine. So they want me to let people know that and just know that I'm here. So hi, everybody. My name is Mary Kate Kwasnik, and I am a preservation specialist at the Northeast Document Conservation Center in Andover, Massachusetts. But I work remotely from Brunswick, Maine, and I'm really pleased to have been invited to chat with you folks today about what I do at NEDCC. So I want to thank you so much for having me. I'll note that before I started at NEDCC, I was the archivist and special collections librarian at the Patent Free Library in Bath. So I'm no stranger to local history rooms and special collections, especially within the context of a public library. Moving to NEDCC has been a really, really interesting job switch, and I've learned a lot about preservation that I didn't know before because now I'm visiting and providing services to collecting institutions of all shapes and sizes, really all around the country. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we do at NEDCC, especially my team, the Preservation Services team. And then, like I said, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about what we do. Okay, so founded in 1973, NEDCC is the first independent nonprofit conservation lab in the United States to specialize exclusively in the conservation and preservation of paper-based collections. We also offer digital preservation assessments, customized trainings, webinars, and a ton of free resources. Today, NEDCC is the largest independent conservation center in the nation, and it's expanded its services to include digital imaging, audio preservation, and preservation training and assessments. Our mission is to improve the conservation efforts of collections holding institutions, to provide the highest quality services to institutions that seek specialized expertise, or institutions without in-house conservation facilities, and to provide leadership in the preservation and conservation fields. So I'm going to give you a little tour of the 5 departments at NEDCC, beginning with my department, Preservation Services. So my team, Pres Services, provides consultations, assessments, and training for clients all across the country and sometimes even internationally. The department works with a range of institutions, both large and small, that serve a role in cultural heritage. So myself and my team visit collecting organizations all around the country to develop preservation assessments, which then helps those institutions develop preservation plans. We offer specialized consults on disaster planning, space renovations, even exhibit planning. And when we conduct a site visit, we spend anywhere from a half day to a full day with you, and we look at everything from your policies and procedures to your building systems, environmental control, storage areas, and then all the way down to individual enclosures of your smallest items. It's super interesting work, and institutions walk away with really clear next steps and priorities for how to better preserve their collections. We also do a ton of teaching. We teach 2 multi-week courses called Pres 101 or Preservation 101 and the Fundamentals of AV Preservation. And we do tons of one-off webinars on digital preservation, disaster planning, exhibition planning, and lots more. So if you're interested in those, keep an eye out on our preservation training calendar because we always have new stuff that we're putting up. NEDCC also has a ton of free online preservation resources that are used worldwide, and they're all available on our website. Using the link that you see on the screen, and I think that you have my slides as a PDF, you can access the Digital Preservation Assessment Handbook, the peer assessment, the textbooks for those courses, AV Preservation and Pres 101. And these are just really information-rich resources that I use all the time when I get questions in my email or on the phone or when I'm writing up a preservation assessment. So you can use that link to get to our website where it has everything free all in one place. Additional free resources that we're well known for are our preservation leaflets. These are easy to understand technical leaflets with information on a wide variety of preservation topics, including planning and prioritizing, emergency management, storage and handling, photographs reformatting, and conservation procedures. The imaging department does preservation quality imaging for paper-based formats, some of which you'll see on the slide. They actually use overhead photography instead of flatbed or sheet-fed scanners, meaning that they can image a wider variety of materials and get super high-res imaging in a way that's really safe for our fragile objects. They also do microfilm digitization, and a newer service that they've added is collections processing. So they'll actually rehouse all of your materials while they're handling them for imaging. And then thanks to a grant from the Mellon Foundation in 2014, NEDCC was able to establish the audio preservation department. The lab provides preservation reformatting for a variety of different formats, only some of which are listed on this slide. They specialize in formats that are either rare or obsolete and require special equipment. And that includes materials that are too damaged or fragile to be played or digitized using traditional methods. So one technology that they have that's super cool is called IRENE, I-R-E-N-E. And it is an overhead scanner, and it takes a digital image of like a record or other grooved media that really can't be played. I've seen them do it with broken records. It's super cool, and it makes a digital file that can then be played digitally and never played physically again. So they do very, very cool stuff. They also do consulting and collections assessments too. And then book conservation was one of NEDCC's first departments when it was founded in 1973. The book lab provides conservation treatment for a range of bound materials, as you see listed on the slide. And as you're probably aware, the goal of conservation is to improve usability or long-term stability of the item while maintaining as much of the original as possible. So in the top right-hand corner is a record book from the 1600s, which had been rebound in the 19th century, but was really heavily handed. So over time, the binding broke and pages were loose. So the book lab treated this item. They took the whole thing apart. They washed it to remove discoloration and stabilize the inks. They mended the pages, and then they rebound it in a new binding. So it can be handled safely, and it's no longer quite as vulnerable to damage, which is the end goal. The book lab also treats a wide variety of bound materials, including scrapbooks, illuminated manuscripts, and even herbarium. Herbarium were often treated with biocides like arsenic or mercuric chloride. So in that bottom right-hand photo, a conservator is testing for arsenic, and that photo did test positive. So she wore PPE and worked on this item only under the flume hood. So they have really, really high-tech labs over in Andover. And then last but not least, we have our paper and photograph conservation department, which works on paper materials, photographs, maps, and more. You can see a variety of the materials that they treat here on this slide. Like the imaging lab, there are numerous specialized pieces of equipment that allow for the safe treatment of objects like suction platens and fume hoods for solvent use, a computerized mat cutter, and controlled light units for stain reduction. And our departments work together, which is a unique component of NEDCC. So you have the ability to treat an object and then have it imaged in high resolution. If you're interested in some of the work that our labs do, you can go to www.nedcc.org/stories to see some really cool photo essays of interesting projects that we've worked on. And then lastly, I wanted to mention a few funding opportunities that are coming up that are really good places to look for preservation funding. In a perfect world, every library would have the funds to do conservation work or imaging work, or bring in a consultant to help with preservation or disaster planning. But the reality is that that's just not the case. And most of our clients rely on funding, and we're here to help support get that. So the first link on this page or on this slide is a page on our website that lists funding opportunities at the federal, state, and regional level that all support preservation activities. The second link is the Approaching NEH Preservation Assistance Grant, or the PAG, which gives $10,000 awards to small institutions to put towards preservation activities. A lot of our clients will use the PAG award to bring in consultants like NEDCC to do a preservation assessment. And then you can actually apply for subsequent PAG awards. So if you get a grant to do an assessment, you can then apply for a year, maybe 2 years later, to get the funding to act on some of the recommendations that come out of an assessment. The deadline is in early January, and it's at this time of year that NEDCC gets a lot of folks in our inboxes asking for letters of commitments for their application. So I really wanted to mention it because we're just entering that season of folks getting organized to apply for the PAG, excuse me. This award also has something like, I think it's a 51% award rate. So you have a really good chance of getting it, and it's a great grant to apply for. And then the smaller text underneath that link right here is a free webinar that my supervisor just did specifically on the PAG award. So that link will take you there, and hopefully you find watching it really worthwhile. And then the last thing that I've linked was just announced the other day, but there is a really quick turnaround, excuse me. The Maine Historical Records Advisory Board is offering an archival collection and preservation grant. This covers purchasing needed archival supplies, digitizing historic records, conserving damaged or fragile records, or conducting professional collection and preservation assessments. So this grant is also up to $10,000, but there is a 25% match requirement, which is important to note. It's a much shorter application than the PAG. It's just a quick PDF, I think. But it is state level, so you would be competing against a lot less applicants. So I recommend you check it out because it's a great opportunity. And these are just a few of many grants that are available to you that specifically support preservation work. And I just picked these out to share because their deadlines are coming up shortly. So with that, that's the end of my slides. I want to thank you so much for having me today. I welcome you to follow us on social media or subscribing to our newsletter. And I also like to always tell people that, we offer tons of these paid services, but we always offer free preservation advice by email or by phone. And we also have a 24/7 collections emergency hotline. So a preservation specialist is always on that hotline. And if you go into work one morning and you've had a leak, things are wet, or if something else has happened, you can call us and get advice on what to be doing with that. So again, thank you so much. I'm really happy to answer any questions that you might have. I'll pop out of screen share. Whoops, stop share. Okay.
Oh, thank you so much, Mary Kate. That's cool stuff that NEDCC, some say NEDC, that's doing today that they didn't do, we'll say like back in, I'm going to go way back, we'll say back in 1998 or 2007. So it's exciting to see like the broken records and then taking a digital image and then allowing somebody to hear the digital sound from that. So everybody who's come in a little bit later, I am recording this, so this is going to be shared on the ASC webpage. I had a question. Has any DCC have done collection assessments and for museums that have artifacts and archives, of course, as well? They have. All right,
Yeah.
I'll be contacting you a little
Yeah, so
later.
3D artifacts are not our specialty. Our specialty is really paper-based, but we do work with a lot of museums and archival collections that do have 3D artifacts, excuse me. So we can advise on those specifically in terms of like storage and general preservation concerns, but we don't do conservation work on those
Oh
items.
no, but I think it's more, there's a small institution in Aroostook County. It's an amazing historical society with a campus and a museum, a smaller museum, but they never had any kind of assessment. I know that I think it's the American Museum Alliance, they have different grants as well for stewardship collection assessments and administrative assessments, but it's always nice to know what's, local, like you're in
Yeah.
Massachusetts. So I just was curious if,
Yeah, for sure. And I should note too that when we say we do assessments for organizations big and small, that's truly the case. I've done assessments for small historical societies that have no staff. They just have a really energetic board of trustees, and they probably won't have a staff anytime soon.
Right.
So we try to be really aware of who it is that we're writing for, who our audience is when we're writing up our preservation assessments. And places like that do tend to have a little bit of everything. They'll have institutional records, they'll have personal papers, they'll have textiles, furniture, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, we definitely will work with organizations like that frequently.
thanks, Kate. Mary, I know I call you Kate, I guess. Sorry. Thank you, Mary. If anybody has any questions for Mary Kate, you can either put it in the chat, which I will keep open, or you just can ask here.
I just want to say thanks for the resources, and yeah, are you gonna be either Anastasia, are you gonna, or Mary Kate, are you gonna send the PowerPoint slides or those in the chat?
Yeah, Mary, are you willing to share the PowerPoint that we can share it and put it on the ASC page?
Yes, that's one of the docs that I shared with you earlier
That
today.
was that. I didn't even open up to look at it. Okay, okay.
Yeah, I included the PowerPoint for any of those links in there if you wanted to click around. And I also included I think it's like a front and back one pager of just like quick preservation tips too.
Okay.
I
Hey,
see it.
Veronica.
I see it. It's in your email.
Yeah,
So
that's okay.
thank
Good. I
you.
didn't even pay attention to what thing. Okay, 2 documents. I just running around, but that's great. And like I said, I'm going to share that with everybody in the group. I think has some it's really valuable to some of the needs that we have. Thanks, Veronica. Good to see you. Anybody else have any questions before we?
I see one in the chat from Anna about how often we do webinars. We offer a lot of webinars, and other staff do them too outside of just my team. Like the imaging staff will do webinars on FADG specifications for digitization and microfilm digitization. And our book lab, the director of our book lab will do webinars on caring for scrapbooks and dealing with mold. So I want to say we offer a webinar like once a month, but it's probably more than that. It's probably like twice a month. I'd have to double check on that, Anna. But we also, I should mention too, that we offer about 6 free webinars a year. And they're on more like broader topics. Like I did one in the summer on preservation grant season that was free. I'm going to do one in January on personal digital archiving that's free. So keep on the lookout for those. Our social media is really good too about showing what's coming up and what you might want to sign up for. Did the Caring for Scrapbook ones a couple years ago and loved it. Oh, good to hear. I'll have to let our director of book conservation know that because she always does that. I'm glad you took it.
I think I took a scrapbook preservation like 2003. Like that's how far back. I still have those materials. And it was, yeah, those workshops on scrapbook preservation and how to deal with them was really dynamic, and it was a lot of fun. And we have a lot of those.
Scrapbooks are so interesting.
They are very interesting, yeah.
And there's always good questions about them because every scrapbook is different and has different formats, and there's no one right answer for
Yeah.
how to manage them.
Very organic. They're all different.
Yeah.
Different.
Veronica, I see your digital hand raised.
Yeah, would you say your workshops are like very, because like I have very little experience with like, I guess certain types of, I'm just like looking at the training lists. Would you say that they're like 101 friendly, or are they like more?
Yeah, it kind of depends. So a lot of them are very 101 friendly. Like I just did one last week on digital preservation called 10 Practical Steps for Getting Started, and that's super 101 friendly. But then there's one this week or next week on like metadata for digital preservation, which is probably like the next step up. but a lot of them are super 101 focused because we're like, you're not going to leave with like a DAS certificate or anything. But I think they're the ones that we do, especially with digital preservation, they're pretty in line with like a digital preservation 101, but might have different like directions that we go in. Thanks. I see something in the chat too. I think this is still from Anna. What are your thoughts on good enough practices versus best practices for digitization? Like if they can't meet FADGI? That's a good question. I don't know that I could answer that right now. That might be a good question for Terrence, who's our director of imaging, because he teaches the courses on, or the webinar, I should say, on FADGI and other digitization. I think that so from my preservation specialist standpoint, we love to frame things as good, better, best. So a lot of folks can't do like the gold standard best because it's all expensive. So in our opinion, with almost everything preservation wise, you just want to be finding something that's doable for you and sustainable for you. I don't know if I can super speak to that in terms of digitization, but in general with preservation, you want to be aiming for the best that's within your resources. Does that make sense, Anna? I hope so. Okay, cool. Yeah, we don't like to tell people like you have to be doing this, you have to be doing this, because it's just not reasonable for most organizations.
Anyone else? Hmm. Let's see. Hold on a second. Okay. Well, first, Mary Kate, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm glad you emailed me just to let me know who you were, because I'm like, I don't know her. So I'm glad to meet you, and I'll probably be connecting with you in the next couple of weeks because I have some questions. And
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you everybody for your time. It's really fun to kind of get ourselves out there, especially being here in Maine. Hopefully, I'll hear from some of you with preservation questions or whatever. We're happy to be of service to you. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
thanks, Mary Kate. You have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye.